Hello, my name is William Carr. I'm 66 years old, and what I'm about to tell you today changed my life forever. I ask you to listen to me until the end, because this story could save you from making the same mistakes I made for 30 years. If you've ever felt that someone in your family is using you, if you've given and given until you're empty, then this story is for you. It was a Sunday in June, Father's Day. I expected, as always, a quick call from my daughter Samantha, maybe a last-minute, store-bought card. But instead, something arrived that I never imagined, a box that almost cost me my life. But let me start from the beginning, because to understand what happened that day, you need to know the complete story. I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here, you'll find stories that move you, inspire you, and speak straight to the heart. For 30 years, I was my daughter Samantha's personal ATM. It started when she was 20 and needed money for college. Then it was the first apartment, then the car, the wedding, the house, the furniture, the vacations. There was always an emergency, always a reason why Dad had to open his wallet. My wife Jessica constantly warned me, "William, you're spoiling her. She's 45 years old and has a husband who can work. When is this going to end?" But I didn't listen to her. I thought I was being a good father, that I was helping my only daughter have a better life. Peter, Samantha's husband, was worse than her. A 47-year-old man who had never held a job for more than 6 months. He always had excuses. The boss was unfair. His coworkers were jealous. The company was poorly managed. The truth is that Peter had found in me the goose that laid golden eggs, and he had no intention of working while Dad kept paying the bills. For years, I paid their mortgage, their credit cards, my grandchildren Emma and Jake's extracurricular activities, their car insurance, even their family vacations. I calculated once that in the last 10 years, I had spent more than $200,000 on them. Money that Jessica and I had saved by working hard for 40 years. But everything changed 6 months ago, when Samantha and Peter came to the house with a proposal. "Dad," Samantha told me with that fake smile I now recognize perfectly, "Peter and I have been thinking. You're already 66 years old. Don't you think it's time you started transferring your inheritance? We want to buy a bigger house for the kids, and we thought it would be better to use that money now when we really need it." Jessica almost choked on her coffee. Transfer the inheritance? William isn't dead. Peter leaned forward with that arrogant attitude I so detested. "Look, Jessica, let's be realistic. You two aren't going to live forever, and we have real expenses now. The kids need better schools. We need a better neighborhood. It's a smart investment." "An investment in your future, you mean?" Jessica replied sarcastically. Samantha stood up, furious. "I can't believe how selfish you are, Jessica. You've always been jealous of the relationship I have with my father. Jealous of watching you bleed your father dry like a leech for 30 years? No, dear, I'm not jealous of that." What followed was the most explosive fight we'd ever had. Samantha screamed that I was her father, and she had a right to that money. Peter threatened not to let us see our grandchildren anymore if we didn't cooperate. Jessica yelled at them to get out of our house, and for the first time in my life, something broke inside me. I looked at my daughter, this 45-year-old woman, throwing tantrums like a 5-year-old, and finally saw her for what she really was, a manipulator who had learned that tears and threats always worked on me. "Out," I said with a voice I didn't recognize as my own. "Get out of my house. Now, Dad?" Samantha tried that little girl voice she always used when things got tough. I said, "Get out. And don't come back until you can treat us with respect." They left, but Samantha turned at the door and yelled at me, "You're going to regret this, Dad. You don't know who you're messing with." Those words stuck with me, but I thought it was just anger talking. How wrong I was. The following days were strangely peaceful. Jessica and I could have dinner without the phone ringing with another emergency. From Samantha. I could read my newspaper without interruptions. For the first time in years, I felt free. But that freedom didn't last long. Father's Day came 6 days after our fight. Jessica had prepared my favorite breakfast, ranch eggs with extra crispy bacon. We were sitting on the back patio, enjoying morning coffee and birdsong when the doorbell rang. "Are you expecting someone?" Jessica asked. "No, but maybe Samantha finally came to her senses," I said, with that pathetic hope I always had when it came to my daughter. I opened the door, but no one was there. Just a medium-sized cardboard box sitting on the front step. It had no return address, just my name and address written in handwriting I didn't recognize. "What's that?" Jessica asked, approaching. "I don't know. Maybe a late Father's Day gift." But Jessica frowned as she examined the box. "William, look." "At this," she said, pointing to small holes punched in the sides of the cardboard. "These are breathing holes." "Breathing holes? What would a box need to breathe for?" At that moment, we heard something. A subtle but unmistakable sound. Something was moving inside the box. Something alive. Jessica stepped back, pale. "William, don't open that box. Call the police." "The police?" "Jessica, you're overreacting." "I'm not overreacting. Who sends something alive in a box with no return address?" "This isn't right, William. None of this is right." But curiosity was killing me. I gently shook the box, and there was definitely something moving inside, something that slithered. "Okay," I finally said. "I'll call the police." 20 minutes later, 2 officers arrived. Officer Martinez, a Latino man in his 40s, and Officer Thompson, a young woman who seemed to take everything very seriously. "Mr. Carr," Officer Martinez said, "we understand you received a suspicious package." I explained the situation, the fight with my daughter, the threat, and now this mysterious box with breathing holes and something alive inside. Officer Thompson examined the box carefully. "There's definitely something moving in there. We're going to open it, but stay back. What happened next will live in my nightmares forever." Officer Thompson carefully cut the tape and opened the box flaps. She immediately jumped back, shouting, "Snake! There's a snake in here!" Jessica screamed and ran toward the house. I stood paralyzed, looking inside the box. There, coiled and clearly agitated by all the movement, was a snake almost 3 feet long. It wasn't venomous, but it was big, threatening, and definitely not something you wanted to find at your door on Father's Day. Officer Martinez called animal control, while Officer Thompson took pictures of everything. "Mr. Carr," she told me, "this is clearly an act of intimidation. Do you have any idea who might have done this?" My heart sank because I knew exactly who it was. But I needed to be sure. "Officer, can you check if there are security cameras in the neighborhood? Anything that might show who left this?" "We're already on it. We're also going to check the box for fingerprints." While we waited for animal control, I called my bank. If Samantha had done this, maybe there was evidence in her recent expenses. "Mr. Carr," the bank representative told me after reviewing the credit card account that Samantha had linked to my account. "I see a charge from yesterday for $127.50 at a place called Reptile Palace. Is that charge yours?" My blood froze. No, it's definitely not mine. "Would you like us to investigate this charge as fraudulent?" "Yes, please. And cancel that card immediately." When I hung up, Jessica was looking at me from the kitchen window with tears in her eyes. No words were needed. We both knew what had happened, but I still needed final confirmation. That night, I called Samantha. It rang 4 times before she answered. "Dad?" Her voice sounded cautious. "Samantha, I need to ask you something directly." Did you send that box? There was a long pause. Too long. What box? I don't know what you're talking about. But then I heard something in the background. Peter laughing. A mocking, malicious laugh. That confirmed all my suspicions. Samantha, I said with a voice firmer than I'd felt in years, I found the charge on your credit card. Reptile Palace, $127.50. Are you still going to lie to me? Another pause, and then her voice changed completely. It became cold, calculating. Maybe you should have thought about the consequences before cutting off our money, Dad. Maybe you should have remembered that actions have consequences. You sent a snake to my house? On Father's Day? Is that the kind of person you are? It was just a prank, Dad. Don't be so dramatic. A prank? You could have killed your stepmother. From fright, you could have given me a heart attack. Peter shouted something in the background, and then Samantha said, Look, Dad, things don't have to be this way. You just have to be reasonable. Give us back the credit cards. Transfer that money we need for the house, and everything will go back to normal. Normal? You call blackmailing your own father normal? I call it reminding you who your family is. I hung up the phone with trembling hands. Jessica came over and hugged me, and for the first time in months, I cried. I cried for the daughter I thought I had. I cried for the 30 years I wasted enabling her behavior. I cried for Jessica, who had to endure watching our daughter manipulate me for decades, but I also cried with relief, because finally, I could see the truth. The next day, I made the most difficult and most liberating decisions of my life. First, I went to the bank and canceled all the credit cards Samantha had access to. I canceled all the automatic payments I covered for her. The mortgage, car insurance, utility bills, everything. The banker looked at me with concern. Mr. Carr, are you sure about this? This will affect several automatic payments. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Next, I went to see a lawyer. I explained the whole situation. 30 years of financial manipulation, the threats, and finally, a snake incident. Mr. Carr, the lawyer told me, what you're describing is financial abuse and now intimidation. We need to take several immediate steps to protect you and your wife. We restructured my will completely. Instead of leaving everything to Samantha, I created an education fund for Emma and Jake that couldn't be accessed by their parents until they turned 25. I left specific instructions that if anyone tried to contest the will or manipulate the children to access the money early, they would forfeit everything. But the most important step was getting a restraining order. With the police report from the snake incident and the bank records showing the fraudulent charge, we had enough evidence to get legal protection. 2 days later, when the restraining order was served, my phone exploded with calls from Samantha. And Peter, I didn't answer any of them, but they decided to come in person. It was a Thursday afternoon. Jessica and I were having lunch on the patio when we saw Peter's red pickup truck speeding down our street. They parked aggressively in our driveway, and both got out slamming doors. Dad, Samantha yelled from the front yard. What the hell did you do? They canceled all my cards. The bank says the mortgage payment was rejected. I walked to the front door but didn't open it. Samantha, you have a restraining order. You need to leave immediately. Restraining order? Peter laughed bitterly. For your own daughter? You've lost your mind, old man. I lost my mind 30 years ago when I started enabling this behavior. I'm finally thinking clearly. Samantha started crying, those manipulative tears I now recognized. Dad, please. I'm sorry about the snake thing, okay? It was Peter's idea. It was just a joke that went too far. A joke? I opened the door just enough to look her in the eyes. Samantha, that wasn't a joke. That was calculated intimidation because I dared to say no to you for the first time in 3 decades. Peter stepped forward aggressively. Look, William, let's be adults here. We have mortgages, we have kids, we have real responsibilities. You're sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars while we're struggling. You're struggling because you've never learned to work for what you want. You've been living off my hard work for years. We're family, Samantha screamed. Family helps each other. Family doesn't send snakes to intimidate each other. Family doesn't threaten to take away grandchildren. Family doesn't treat each other like personal ATMs. Jessica appeared beside me, holding her phone. I'm calling the police. You're violating the restraining order. You don't have to call anyone, I told her, pulling out my own phone. I already did when I saw them coming up the street. Peter's face turned red with rage. You're going to regret this, old man. We know where you live. We know your routines. This isn't over. Actually, it is, I said calmly. It's been over since the moment you thought it was acceptable to send a snake to my house. You crossed a line you can never uncross. The police arrived 5 minutes later, the same Officer Martinez who had responded to the snake incident. When he saw Samantha and Peter, he shook his head. Folks, you're in violation of a restraining order. You need to leave immediately, or I'll have to arrest you. As they were escorted back to their truck, Samantha turned one last time. This isn't over, Dad. You'll come crawling back when you realize you need us. No, Samantha, I replied loud. Enough for her to hear. I needed the daughter I thought I had. I don't need the stranger you've become. That was 6 months ago. The best 6 months of my life in decades. Jessica and I have traveled to places we'd always wanted to see, but never could, because every penny went to Samantha's emergencies. We've renovated our kitchen, something Jessica had wanted for 10 years. We've donated to charities, helped our elderly neighbors, and actually enjoyed our retirement money instead of watching it disappear into someone else's problems. The hardest part was losing contact with Emma and Jake. Samantha made sure of that, using the children as weapons, just like I knew she would. But my lawyer assured me that when they turn 18, they'll be able to make their own decisions about having a relationship with us. I've also learned some hard truths about myself. A therapist helped me understand that what I thought was love was actually enabling. What I thought was being a good father was actually teaching my daughter that manipulation works, that she never had to face consequences, that someone else would always bail her out. I robbed her of the opportunity to grow up, to learn resilience, to become a responsible adult. In trying to make her life easier, I made it harder for everyone, including her. 3 months ago, I heard through a mutual friend that Samantha and Peter lost their house. They had to move in with Peter's mother. Part of me, that old, enabling part, wanted to call and offer help. But I've learned to recognize that voice now, and I don't listen to it anymore. Instead, I put that money into Emma and Jake's education fund. When they're ready, when they're old enough to understand, they'll have the chance at a real education and a real future, one that doesn't depend on manipulating their grandfather. Last month, I got a card in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Inside was a photo of Emma and Jake at a school play, with a note that said, "They ask about you every day. When you're ready to be a real grandfather, instead of a selfish old man, call me." I showed it to Jessica. She read it and shook her head. Even now, she's trying to manipulate you. When you're ready to be a real grandfather, as if loving your grandchildren means enabling their parents' destructive behavior. She was right, of course. Jessica is always right about these things. I've learned to listen to her wisdom instead of my guilt. But you know what? I am being a real grandfather. I'm making sure those kids have a future that doesn't depend on bleeding other people dry. I'm breaking a cycle that could have destroyed them the same way it nearly destroyed me. Every Sunday, Jessica and I go to church, and I pray for my daughter. I pray that she finds her way, that she learns to stand on her own feet, that she becomes the person I always hoped she could be. But I don't pray for a reconciliation anymore. I pray for her to find peace with herself, so she doesn't pass this poison on to her children. People ask me if I regret cutting contact with Samantha. They ask if I miss her. The truth is, I miss the daughter I thought I had. I mourn the relationship I thought we shared. But I don't miss the stress, the manipulation, the constant demands, the way she made me feel like a failure if I ever said no. I don't miss being afraid to answer my own phone. I don't miss checking my bank account with dread, wondering what new emergency had drained it. I don't miss the fights with Jessica about enabling behavior. I was too blind to see. What I've gained is so much more than what I lost. I've gained my self-respect. I've gained a peaceful marriage. I've gained the ability to sleep at night without worrying about what financial crisis would hit tomorrow. Most importantly, I've gained the knowledge that love doesn't mean giving someone everything they want. Real love sometimes means saying no. Real love means allowing people to face the consequences of their actions so they can learn and grow. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you have a child or relative who treats you like their personal bank account, who uses guilt and manipulation to get what they want, who threatens to take away their children if you don't comply, please learn from my mistakes. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's necessary. You're not helping someone by enabling their bad behavior. You're hurting them and yourself. It took me 30 years and a snake in a box to learn this lesson. Don't wait as long as I did. There's life after saying no. There's peace after setting boundaries. There's love after stopping the enabling. Take it from someone who almost learned too late. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is cut the cord. My name is William Carr, and this is my story. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's never too late to choose your own peace.